Hi, my name is Loretta, or Trinity6, and this is my channel, The Limitless Infinite, a space for you to align your mind to higher vibrations and higher frequencies. I am making this video today in a series called Figures of Speech. I recently was thinking about sort of this figure of speech, or this catchphrase, or this old saying that we kind of have, and it really spurred my thoughts into realizing that the previous video that I've made, which is take it with a grain of salt, I realized that within that phrase, it really had this other sort of hidden meaning to it. And then along with that, I recently, like the other day, just realized, oh my gosh, why do we call things figures of speech? And I guess I hadn't really thought about it before either, but I realized upon my thinking, I'm like, why do we call them figures of speech? I realized from making my previous video, Take It With a Grain of Salt, in which I referenced being able to visualize an image while saying this phrase to yourself as a tool for healing, that some figures of speech, or maybe all of them, I don't know, I have to make more videos, so we'll see. But some figures of speech, actually, when we say it's a figure of speech, it could be a guidance tool for us to be able to visualize or imagine a picture in our mind, and using that picture and using the hidden meaning within the phrase, we are able to actually transmute energies and help ourselves heal. So the importance of figures of speech is just to know that when you say one to yourself and you realize it's a figures of speech, or figure of speech, that you might have some kind of hidden meaning or hidden imagery buried within that saying that will really be able to help you use it as a tool kind of presently or in the future for any type of healing work. But today's figure of speech is lighten up. And so when I was thinking about this the other day, I was like, what is another, figure of speech? And I think that also sometimes there are ones that people might call old saying or a catchphrase, and they're definitely different. Catchphrases are catchphrases, and maybe I'll make a video about that. But figures of speech, I'm going to do my best to kind of thoroughly maybe do a little more research and think of, I kind of just wait for them to pop in my head and then make a video. But I think in the future, if you know any figures of speech, post them or comment them down below, and we'll have a look at them and see if there's some kind of hidden meaning within them. But basically what I'm going to do is try to make about a video a week on a different figure of speech, and we'll see what kind of hidden meanings and healing tools are available to us within that wording or within that phrase. So today's figure of speech, lighten up, that's pretty easy. I think that that's another easy one. Take it with a grain of salt was also really easy. I'll post a link in the video down below, so just check that out if you want to know what kind of imagery and healing that you can use with that phrase. But lighten up, I think, is pretty simple. When we're talking about lighten up, usually it's when somebody's taking something too seriously, or we want people to be a little more lighthearted, which is kind of another one. But what that is, it's really about lighting up or lightening up, which to me, the initial thought that I had when I thought of that is like, usually when you're being too serious, or taking something too seriously, or taking it too much to heart, and maybe somebody said something that was a joke and you're like really kind of resonating on a low level with that, and you're really feeling not good about that, and someone says to you, hey, lighten up, because the other person maybe didn't mean it to be taken that way, or somehow your context of that word or what they said to you has a different vibration than what they meant when they said it to you. So often people say this, lighten up, when we want people to just kind of try to let something roll off your back and to really not have to let it really get to you. And so lighten up, to me, when I thought about it, was really about when someone says that to you, it's almost like, I feel like a lot of times you're almost like, I imagine this person that's kind of like hunched over and kind of like this, because you're kind of in thought, trying to think about, and you're feeling this thing. And usually when we feel, or usually when we're resonating with something that's negative or low vibration, low frequency, we tend to be more contracted, which sometimes can show up in our body too. I think sometimes when we're feeling something like that, when we have good posture and really putting ourselves out, we tend to, I think it's easier to really, not deflect energies, but there's a way an energy has of coming into your field and then kind of being either projected not projected out, but sort of like where things would kind of bounce off of you in a way. But sometimes when we're really contracted, it's almost like we're pulling things into our energy field, which means that when someone sends something our way, we're just kind of grasping it and taking it in. So lighten up really has to do with, I sort of imagine, like I said, this person kind of hunched over and someone taps you on the back and says, hey buddy, like lighten up, like don't take it too seriously. And what that is when someone says that to you, I feel like there's the first initial physical reaction, which is to really sit up straight, to take a good posture, to not have your heart center so concave and so contracted, and that you really want to just sit up and put your shoulders back and really open up your heart space. So it's a physical reaction to when you hear this figure of speech, as well as some imagery that you can imagine in your mind. And when you imagine lighten up, it's really, I think sometimes the first thing that can come to mind is like this light bulb, but that's really not what we want. What lighten up, I think, to me anyway, for this tool for healing is really about, like I said, sitting up straight, putting your shoulders back, opening up your heart center, and then when someone says to you, lighten up, you want to imagine the light that's inside you, this light that's in your heart center, just burning or just illuminating brighter and brighter and brighter. And so what lighten up really is like take your light up to a higher level. And when you allow yourself to lighten up, which is almost like a two-part, it's almost like a two-part phrase, which is like, lighten up is to, like, you can imagine in your mind, the first part of lighten up is to really, you're feeling this heavier load, this burden, this low vibration and low frequency is just kind of putting this pressure, this stress on you. And basically the first thing you want to imagine is you just releasing, and like I was saying, let that energy just roll off of you, kind of slide off your back. So the first thing is lighten up by what you're doing is holding on to that energy, being in this contracted state. So the first thing that you can visualize is you, and if you're having a hard time doing it physically, just imagine in your mind this figure of speech. The first part, lighten up, is release that load. Imagine that thing that somebody said to you, that thing that somebody did to you. You can imagine the words just sitting on your shoulder and sitting on your back, the thing that they said to you or the action that they did to you. Picture it as an image or even a photograph. To me, it could be like just the saying words written across your back or written on a piece of paper, or a photograph of the experience that you had with this person that is creating this heavy load. And you just imagine it, and just in your mind you imagine yourself like releasing it, just kind of like releasing that load off of your back and off of your shoulders. So that first part of lighten up is, hey, I gotta let that go. And what I'm gonna do is imagine that thing, this experience, this action as a physical, tangible thing on you. And the first part is you're gonna let it go. You're gonna let it slide right off of you. And then when you're able to do that and you see that load coming off your back, that's when you wanna take into the physical world, sitting up straight, and you wanna take your shoulders back, and you want to open up your heart center. And I think the second part, which I just said earlier, well, I'll make another video, but the second part of this figure of speech, where there is another figure of speech that will relate also to this, but I think if that isn't enough, that first initial step of just imagining you becoming lighter, like lighten up the load, as in take off that heavy weight, the second half of it is really about also lightening up. So then once your load is off your back and you can imagine that tangible thing, that tangible experience, that tangible action as something that you release physically, that weight off of you, the second part of lighten up can really also be about sitting in that posture, putting back your shoulders, opening up your heart center, and then taking the light that's in you, the light that you have, which is kind of hard to, it's like you almost imagine that it's harder to see when you're hunched over from the weight and stress of something, and that you're kind of being concave and you're almost like closing in on your own light. You're kind of like holding it in, that when you have that good posture and you open up that light, you're able to really visualize that light in you more. And then you want to take that up, which is really to just illuminate yourself. And so when you have that good posture, you just focus your attention on that light that's in your heart, and just imagine this light in you getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And when you focus on that energy that's in your heart, that is really about, when we use this phrase, lighten up, it generally has to do with stuff that's not too serious, stuff that we are more able to let go in a moment and to not really allow ourselves to really resonate with something. So when an experience like this happens to you and it becomes this load on your shoulders, when you engage with it and you really resonate with it, what happens is it becomes kind of like locked in, and then you're carrying this thing around on you until you take the time to transmute it. And the longer you have it carried on you, the more difficult, the more challenging it can be to let that load go, because essentially what happens is, as you keep progressing through your experience, more and more things can become burdened down on you. And so that one thing, if you don't transmute it in that moment, what happens is there can be more things that kind of pile up and pile over it. And it might even be something that is something that you totally forgot about, but then can become really seated in subconscious actions, becoming real-time actions when you have a lot of those experiences that you haven't transmuted, especially ones that kind of relate to one another, or say you have a number of experiences with the same person and you don't transmute, and then you start making different kinds of subconscious choices in your engagements with these people. But if you can take the time to really think about this phrase, this figure of speech, and then use these visual images as a way of releasing these energies and trying to focus your attention more on the inner light that you have, and just being able to feel that vibration that you have within your heart center. And sometimes I say that too, like, I am feeling the vibration and frequency of my heart center, of my light, and as I'm raising that light or illuminating that light more, I know that I'm feeling the vibration being raised as well. And sometimes when we say these things out loud, it's easier for us to really manifest that act of creation. So that's another part, is that you may want to use the I am statement. I am visualizing letting this thing go. I am visualizing my light becoming more illuminated. I am feeling the frequency of my own light vibration as I bring it into a higher illumination. And when you use these I am statements, that is really an act of creation, and so it can become much more tangible, and it really manifests on a different level when you're saying these things out loud. So if you need to take your own time to sit in a room by yourself, by all means do that. But I just wanted to kind of bring today this figure of speech for this week, which is really lighten up. And I think a lot of these ones, I'm going to try to just do the most relevant ones, I think, to ways for us to do healing, ways for us to raise our frequency, raise our vibration, ways for us to not allow ourselves to really resonate with these low vibrations and low frequencies that we've allowed ourselves to resonate with for very long amounts of time, or lifetimes even. And right now it's such an important time for healing and for letting, I shouldn't say letting go, but not allowing our energy to resonate at these levels, and to really be focused on the frequency and vibration that we really are inside. That's going to be really, really important in this year to come, and of course in the future altogether. But try to remember that this is a figure of speech that you can use for other people too. These things are healing tools, and when we say figures of speech, don't forget that there is a hidden meaning or hidden image that can be used for a form of healing. And so, as I said, if you have any more that you can think of, please post, comment, or email them down below, and we'll have a look at them and see if we can think of something. And like I said, I'll probably just post one a week and try to have new figures of speech, especially ones that we can use as healing tools. And that's it. So anyway, hopefully everybody is lightening up more and more every day, and more as we move forward. Don't forget that you can say this figure of speech to yourself. If somebody says something to you, don't forget, they're not just figures of speech that we have to give to other people or say to other people or communicate with other people when they need it, but we can say it internally to ourselves, and go through the process of using this figure of speech, using this tool as a way to release, as a way to release your resonance with these low vibrations, low energies, and as a way of self-healing as we go along, so that we don't carry a lot of these low vibrations and low frequencies with us all the time. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video.